the emerald enigmatic entity who uses effulgent efficacy to eradicate his enemies. I'm talking about Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern. Today on Comicology. So everybody knows who Green Lantern is. Green Lantern's awesome. I love Green Lantern. But did you know that before he existed as a science-based space alien police officer cop, he was actually more based in mythology than anything else. His ring was not the work of fact. His ring was not the work of technology at its apex, but instead the work of a magical lantern who could eradicate all darkness with its brilliant green glow and also murder some people. We'll get to that. Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern, made his debut in All-American Comics number 16 in the year 1940. This happened about 6 months after Jay Garrick's The Flash, and about a year after Batman and Superman had already debuted. Superhero culture in America had seemingly popped up overnight. Everybody was enjoying it, and the creation of newer and better superheroes became paramount to the success of comic book companies. This is where we meet Mr. Martin Nodell, who did work as an artist for DC Comics back in the 40s and is the creator of Alan Scott's Green Lantern. The idea was that he wanted to create a character who was based primarily on all the mythological tropes that we had seen in other works of fiction. The idea was to have a guy who somehow found himself in possession of a magical ring that was connected to a lantern. He would use the ring and its magical abilities to fight crime, but every now and again he would have to return to his limitless power source, which is the lantern, so that the ring would maintain its effectiveness. Thus, the Green Lantern was essentially born at that point. Martin pitched the idea to then publisher Max Gaines, who liked it enough to want to see it put in print. He commissioned the first issue, which would appear in All-American Comics number 16, with Nodell drawing most of the pages, but Bill Finger coming in to round them out. Bill Finger is famous for his work on the Green Lantern, which he would continue to do for the next 7 years until its cancellation in the year 1947. Of course, they were all right to love the character so much because when Green Lantern debuted, he made a huge splash with audiences. Everybody loved him, though arguably he was a bit less popular than the Flash, still very much worthy of his pedigree and his legacy. So Green Lantern made a splash with audiences. He was arguably less popular than the Flash, but still held his own as far as sales were concerned. DC Comics allowed him a spot on the Justice Society of America, the world's first superhero team, along with Flash and a bevy of other superheroes that they had owned at the time. Also, he had been given his own series, Green Lantern Comics, which ran until 1949, but was canceled right before the beginning of the Silver Age due to declining sales in superhero comics. So there you go. Now you know all about Alan Scott and where he came from. Now we should probably take a look at his origin issue and see just how he came into existence. The story begins literally with a train wreck. Alan Scott is riding a train to an unknown destination when suddenly it rips from the tracks and falls off a cliff. Alan is miraculously unharmed, however, and uses his lamp to light the way. Things get weirder, however, when his lamp suddenly begins to talk to him. The lamp explains its origins as a mystical meteor, which fell from the heavens. It gives the prophetic speech about its intentions. It promises to flame on only 3 times. First, to bring death. Second, to bring life. And third, to bring power. A local man, realizing a talking meteor is kind of a big deal, takes it back to his shop and works the materials into the shape of a lamp. The local villagers become hungrily greedy for the lantern's power and murder the shopkeeper. As a result, the lantern uses its flame and murders all of the thieves. Well, so far it's been honest. It flamed on and it brought death. Holy cow, did it bring death. Years later, the Lantern is in America, in the possession of a mentally ill patient. The patient fashions the Lantern into the shape of a modern-day train lantern, and in return it heals the patient of his illness and grants him a new life. Hey, that's 2 for 2. Can you guess who's going to get all the superpowers, though? Then the Green Lantern gives Alan Scott his powers. Called it! Using the advice of the Lantern, Alan forges a ring of its materials, which when worn grants him tremendous magical abilities. It's at this point in the story that we also learn that the train crash was no accident. It was actually the work of an evil tycoon known as Drecker. He makes his way to Drecker's estate, and then using his various magical abilities, as well as some good old-fashioned punching, he brings the man to justice. However, after forcing a confession out of Drecker, the strain becomes too much for him, and he dies of shock. Alan decides that this is a fitting end to a mad tycoon, and decides to devote himself fully to fighting all of humanity's evils. He crafts a costume for himself and adopts the name of the Green Lantern. Yep, so that's it. It's a bit strange, but everything in the Golden Age is kind of strange. As far as Green Lantern is concerned, he would go on to have a great many adventures, and he would bring a lot of very bad people to justice. Eventually, Green Lantern went as far as to find himself becoming the head of a media conglomerate. But everything that goes up must eventually come down. And in 1949, his line of books were canceled. But this is actually a fitting end to the Alan Scott character. His mythological magical powers just had no place in the more science-based Silver Age, which would start the following year in 1950. After that, nobody would hear anything from the Green Lantern for about a decade, until suddenly the introduction of Hal Jordan. Yeah, that's that guy. That's the Green Lantern we all know and love. He actually has much of the same motif as Alan Scott, except his ring and power set were justified as being advanced forms of technology and not magic. So that's all I have for Alan Scott, the grandiose Green Lantern from the Golden Age. But if you would indulge me in answering one of my questions, I am very curious about this character. I'm wondering, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer Alan Scott's more mythological Green Lantern, or the more science-based Green Lantern, Hal Jordan? If you had to pick one and then kill the other, who would it be? Also, just so you know, Alan Scott has been known in the comic books to be great friends with Mr. Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash. I feel like I've been talking about him a lot in this episode, but that's because I actually made a video on him, and I will go ahead and share that with you. If you want to know the complete story, go check that out. Both the characters came out at the same time, and they're really pretty awesome together. They make a great team. Okay, so that's it. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!